Well, hello, hello, hello.
Oh, hello.
How are we all doing? Excuse me. Mhm.
Good so far.
It's so far.
I said good so far.
Oh, good so far. I'm like, what's so far? What's like there's moments where like you want to change the channel, but the remote's so far away. Like,
Right, right.
maybe I do want to watch a documentary about pink lilies. Oh,
Yes. So far, just so you know, that one NOD that we found not home on Saturday.
yeah.
We tried, both of us tried to call him. We're not getting any. I got like a sharp busy signal. I don't know what Marjorie got. There's a second number, but I haven't had a chance to call it today just because I didn't get the information till it worked. But
Mm.
I'll try it. I might try it tonight. I'm supposed to be going down to property tour in Pocatello this afternoon, so we'll see what I can do this afternoon when I get home.
Okay. Yeah, let me know and what you need if you need us to go over there and have a chat, whatever.
I don't know if
Whatever.
we can go over. Yeah, I don't know if you can go over there and have a chat. I wasn't there. I remember that's one of my said it might be cleaned out, and they had the NOD on the porch.
Oh, that's right. Well, we might be able to want to look at see what the mailing address is. If the mailing address is different than what their address is,
Oh, that might work too.
right? Because then that'll give us that. Then we'll know if we need to do something like that. You know what I mean?
I'll have to chat. Ask Margie when she comes in if she had that other phone number yet.
All right, I'm making a couple of you guys co-hosts. Oh, where'd Jeff go? There he is. And- okay. Yeah, all right. Well, let's get this show on the road. Um, First of all, thanks for or I appreciate everyone being understanding about yesterday. My so like during the time of the call or just before my daughter got um I guess she's allergic to mangoes. And so we got her a mango, excuse me, mango. I got her mango and she just started allergic reaction. So we had to go to the she's okay, but I had to go to the school and pick her up and make sure it was okay. We had some stuff in the house, but it was yeah, everything's okay now. So yeah, my apologies for yesterday, guys. Okay, sweetness. All right, so last week we ended on talking about negotiations. Um, I wanted to, I mean, we can still do like even like a role play about negotiations or even talk about like overcoming objections. So what would be like what do you guys think that would help you guys the most? Like whatever, because going over objections just in general is good, but you know, also just sometimes just role playing the whole thing out. And there's that. Okay, good. Made it restricted. Order. Okay. What's what you guys' thoughts? Does we go over some objections or the overcoming objections? Yeah, all at once, everybody.
I had I don't know, kind of a frequent objection. Just people say, like, I would sell, but I don't know where I would live or
Okay.
how I would buy anything in this market. So that, I don't
Uh,
know. On the surface, that tells me that's like, okay, they're not really motivated because if they had to sell, they would figure that out. But
right.
uh,
Yeah. And I could definitely see why someone would would think that have that challenge. One thing, and on a side note too, guys, if you're coming up with like the same objection, or if you're getting like the same objection, this is just an example. I'm not saying this is necessarily falls in this category, but if you guys are getting like the similar objections every single time, that's when you want to think back, like, hey, what am I saying to make them think that or say that, right? Because if it's pretty consistent that that same objection's coming up, like something that whether that's it's bringing that concern up, you know. Like when I first started getting cold calls, I would get how'd you get this number all the time, every single time. Well, not every single time, but quite often. That was like one of my, and I'll get to your thing here, Jeff, in a sec. But I had to kind of look at my script and see what I was doing to kind of make them feel that way. And I can't remember what I changed because this is years ago, but I remember I tweaked some things, and I stopped getting that objection as much, you know, or hardly ever. So yeah, but okay, back to your question, Jeff. So if they don't know where to go, right? Now, are these like typically like for foreclosure? Are these just you know, tired landlords, or is it kind of a combination of everything? Just so I have an idea.
Yeah, kind of a combination. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
mostly I haven't focused much on NODs, but it's mostly been like distressed properties physically.
Okay, so like driving for dollars type leads.
Yeah.
Potentially vacant, or I guess in this case they would be vacant, but the, you know, roofs leaked or whatever. Yeah. So for example, on something like that, on if they were in a foreclosure, and I'll give multiple answers to this. If they were in a foreclosure, I would say, so what? Yeah, I totally understand why you'd be concerned about that. Let me ask you a question, if you don't mind. If we're unable to buy our house and stop the foreclosure, or if you can't find another solution, heaven forbid, what would happen? Where would you guys go if that was the case? And so they already have an idea, because they've been thinking about like they've been struggling with this for months. You know, you don't just go into foreclosure over the weekend. Um, and so a lot of times, like, well, we'd have to move in, or rent an apartment or whatever. And so they're basically answering that question for you in that scenario. Now, if it's just like a distressed home, so maybe it's like the windows cracked, it's, you know, long grass, the house is in disarray, but there's still I've seen plenty of people where um they live in a home, and there's a hole in the ceiling. Like I remember this one guy that I gave him an offer. It was here in Tooele, and it was like 100. Like my offer was like 150. It was like really bad. It was like really like I'm surprised it's still hanging up. But there's black mold everywhere. It's like kind of a hoarder situation. Literally over the bed where the dad slept, there was like a big hole in the roof in the ceiling. Like there was like literally sleeping under the stars. And so they're living in this condition, but it's like, oh, it's fine, it's normal, whatever, right? Now, obviously, not everyone's gonna be into those type of situations, right? Okay. So it's like I don't know where I'm gonna live. Um, I would ask something. I want them to answer that question, right? Because that's the problem that their objection they're having. It's like, yeah, I totally, because you definitely, because this market is kind of crazy, right? I totally understand where you're coming from, and if let's just say that something weird happened and forced you to move, like you had to move tomorrow, where what would you do? What would you rent it, or would you actually just try to find a place to live, or what would be like what would you do if someone gun to head, you had to move, what would you do? And then a lot of times they'll come up with their own solution, or like, I'm not sure. Like if you had a guess, and if you're getting and a lot of like, I'm not sure, I don't know. I was like, one way to because everyone knows, then they know, even if it's subconscious, they know, they have an idea, they have some sort of solution in their head. Um, like, oh yeah, I totally understand that you don't know what you would do, but if you just had a guess, what would it be? I don't know. I know that you don't know, but if you had a guess, let's say if you were you're a super genius, what would you do? And they'll come up with something. It's very odd. But a lot of times, though, if they still don't, then I would go back into the motivation. I would start asking about their motivations to sell. Because I think you're right, Jeff. Because you said like if they're like that's like their main concern that's really holding them up, or at least that's what it seems like. Then maybe they're not as motivated because they've been living in this hoarder house or this distressed property for X amount of years, and it's normal. So that could be a solution, or they live in a fine house and they're not really motivated to sell. It's funny you said that because I posted a post like 10 minutes ago, and what did I say? Yeah, no pain, no motivation means no deal. If they have no pain, they have no motivation. Without motivation, there's no deal. Now that pain doesn't have to be like massively huge or anything, but there has to be some sort of motivation. And it does not have to be foreclosure, it doesn't have to be death. It could be some sort of a motivation that they have. So that's what I would go back to. I would just try to get them to come up with a solution, and even still that's like hitting the brick wall. Then I would start asking about like, so what would it, if you did sell the property, what would that look like? Like how would you feel if you were able to see and found a place to live? What would that mean to you? Or if you don't sell this property, what, because the market's crazy, what would you do? When would you actually sell the property? So those type of questions, right? So it's just like you want to go back to the motivation because you need to really pinpoint that. Because once you really find their true motivation or what's behind the service level, then the problem of them knowing where to move is not going to be as big as they're making out to be. Because that's going to be the motivation isn't big enough for them to sell, or the challenge of finding another place to live is bigger than their motivation to sell. So that's why you need to kind of hit on the motivation more and try to expand that, because part of negotiations is situation awareness. So situation awareness, it's asking questions like, like, um, why haven't you? What's stopping you from just going to an agent and listening right now? If you don't sell this, what'll happen to you guys in X amount of time? If assuming we come up with all of the right price point, the right terms, everything makes sense for you, and we can just when would be the perfect time for us to close? Because sometimes they don't realize what the situation they're in. So asking questions is just like, what'll happen if you don't, if the property doesn't sell? If you never sell this property, I mean, how do you feel about the condition of the home? Or if you don't sell this property, what will happen to you and your family? We would just live in the house. Oh, okay. And well, what was your original intent of selling? Why did you want to have a conversation with me to sell to begin with? Let them qualify to you why they want to sell. Does that help, Jeff? I don't know if it does.
Yeah, that does. No, just
Okay.
turning it, turning the question back on them.
Yes.
And
And that's true for almost every objection. But yes, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, but also, just gauging the true motivation as well.
Yeah. This is going to be like 90% of the objections, because if they're coming with objection, it's probably either you haven't gotten to the real motivation or deeper than service level, or maybe you have, but just your price point or the need to sell isn't bigger than their need, whatever their want is, right? So if it's just like, yeah, I saw your ad, I just wanted to see how much my house is worth. We're gonna sell. We're thinking of selling the next couple of years. Like there's no urgency at all. They just want to, and you can get to the real motivation. Like, yeah, well, my kid's gonna go to college, so we're gonna downsize a little bit, but we're not too big of a hurry. we just don't want a bigger house to clean. It's maybe a smaller yard. But in the meantime, I'm totally fine paying some kid to mow my yard, and this my son's bedroom is now storage or my new office or whatever. If there's no like real motivation, like, oh yeah, I gotta sell because, or I want to sell so I can go to this new job, or I need to sell because we're getting divorced, closure, or a number of reasons of motivations, right? But if it's just like you can get down to the real motivation of, because sometimes you can give them a decent offer and actually find out what their true motivations are, and it's still not a deal, and that's okay. That'll happen. So don't feel like you failed because you found out some motivations, maybe, and you don't really truly know until the true motivations are, but you have a really good feeling like you got that. It passes the sniff test, like it logically makes sense. And even then, sometimes it just doesn't work out. Most of the time, you can get something. If you get to the true motivation, then usually you can get something going.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. So with overcoming objections in general, guys, the formula is acknowledge, address, question about the next step. So sometimes overcome objection is just asking a question right back at them, right? About that, like figuring out what their motivations are or whatever it is. But a lot of times it's just like address, or excuse me, acknowledge. I always skip this order for some reason. But acknowledge, address, and then move on. If you act like it's a big deal, then it's a big deal. So, and even if moving on, there are more like, wait, but I still have questions about that thing. Yeah, you can dive deep into it. So, for example, using Chris Alvin's script is a perfect example of this formula. If when we're doing cold calling and someone says, "Well, where'd you get this number?" Oh, that's a great question. Address. I get leads from all sorts of places. I if you like, I'd be more than happy to take a look and see where I got this. So I addressed. So is this property for sale? And then move on with the question. Whatever kind of the next steps are, or whatever next thing you need to want to ask, that's you moving on. So it's like nothing. It's like, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I got leads from all sorts of places. I mean, first of all, it's a great question. People ask me that quite a bit. I get leads from all sorts of places. I can look it up and tell you, like, that's not a problem. But let me ask you, so is this property for sale? And if they keep on going, well, no, you tell me where it is, where you found it. Like, oh, sure, no problem. It looks like yeah, so it was on the public records. I was able to pull this number. Google's a thing, right? So and that's why I'm just calling to see if you want to, if you're interested in or ever thought about selling. So those are like that's the formula. Okay. Awesome. Okay, what objections are you guys worried about? You may be having in cold calling, or like when you're actually like talking about sellers, or talking about sellers, talking to sellers. One that maybe something that you may hear a lot. So I put it in the sheet, which is pretty good. So um, I like how I put this. So I'll just put it in. So objection is like, I may need to think about it. I may need to think about it, or I need to think about it. Let me think about it, and I'll get back with you. Yeah. Oh, of course. I wouldn't expect you to make a decision unless you felt 100% comfortable. Usually when people say that they want to think about it, it's because there's something specific that they're unsure about. What's on your mind? And I read, and I said that kind of fast, but when you're saying it in real life, the cadence and how you pause that. So yeah, of course, I would never expect you to make any decision unless you're 100% comfortable with that. Usually my experience, when people say they want to think about it, there's usually something specific that they're unsure about. What's on your mind? Another way to address that as well is like if I need to think about it is, um, okay, great, yeah, absolutely. I would definitely would never want you to make any decisions until you're 100% sure. Uh, when in the next day or two do you think we can reconvene and then we talk about after you think about it? One, so we're setting an appointment, right? It's not like, yeah, we'll think about it and I'll leave you. If you guys leave any type of conversation with like, oh yeah, I'll text you, I'll call you, that's done though. You're done. Hang it up. That deal's not happen. It can still happen, but you're playing on hard mode for some reason. So let's keep it on easy mode. And always, Michael Huggins, book another meeting from another meeting. You know, there's a reason why he's one of the top salespersons in Renatus, right? It's the same thing in real estate. Book another meeting for another meeting. So, anyways, so they win in the next day or two, because sometimes I need to think about it. Yeah, give me a couple weeks and I'll think about it. Like, no, that ain't happening. When in the next day or two can we get together after you had a chance to think about it, and so we can see if this is a good fit for you or not. So I'm saying in the next day or two. So now put it in their heads like, oh yeah, and tomorrow, the next day, we're gonna meet again. And like, yeah, maybe on Wednesday that or Thursday probably fine. Okay, awesome. Let me check my calendar. Thursday, yeah, I got 5 o'clock on Thursday open. Let's do it then. Oh, I can't. Well, I get off work, or I'm still working. Well, when do you get off? Get off at 6? Okay. Actually, I have a 7:30 open. Let's talk about it 7:30 on Thursday. Okay, cool. So now that this is similar to release statements. Release statements are we talked about release statements before, right? So it's like you're releasing the sales pressure. This is the exact same thing. We set an appointment about them because they need to think about it. We set an appointment, so now they feel like, okay, this is like dunzo. Like I don't even have to show up to the appointment. Jared's out of my hair. I'm fine. One thing but so now that the appointment's sent, they feel relieved. The sales pressure is 100, like almost like 100% off. And like, hey, before we end the call, I mean, most people have, this concern, something specific that they need to think about. Just so I know that what to talk about and what we're gonna be discussing on Thursday at 7:30. What was some of the things that you were needed to think about? So just so I'm prepared, or just so I know what we're going to talk about on Thursday, where the appointment is, what is it that we need to think that you're going to be thinking about, or what would be some concerns that you might be talking about? They're going to tell you because it's like the sales pressure is off, and you can just address it right then and there. Does that make sense, guys? So you're sending it. This is like when they need to think about it. They maybe this could even be a spouse concern or objection to you can handle very similar. You know, just so I have an idea what you guys are what we might be talking about Thursday after you talk to the missus. What do you think what do you think any concerns that your wife might have? Oh, well, maybe it's not enough money, or like whatever they say is actually going to be their concern. That's going to be their main concern. And you just address it right then and there. Another concern, speaking of that, is like I need to talk to my spouse. Sometimes, like like in the script, in the cold calling script, we talk about trying to get all the decision makers there when you're making the offer. Like that is true, and sometimes no matter what, you just can't get them all there. It just doesn't happen. Or maybe they said like, yeah, I'm the main guy. I'll make all the decisions. Okay, cool. And then they'll drop a spouse concern on you. Oh, I gotta talk to my wife first. But you said that she doesn't need to be here. Sometimes, I mean, if they said that specifically, then I'll call them out on it, jokingly, having fun. Um, but you can address it the same way that how we just did as far as setting an appointment. I'm sure there's some name for that, but setting an appointment and then asking what they're going to talk about, what their concerns are, and then just right then and there. Another one is like, so that makes sense. What do you think that they will say if they are, so if they like, I got to talk to the wife. Got to make sure that she's on board. Oh, totally. I would never want you to make a decision without having your wife on board. That makes 100% sense. 100% sense. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes 100%. Blah, blah, blah. So you guys don't even have to know words. You just gotta
Total sense.
mumble your way through, right? That makes perfect sense. Uh, just so I'm aware. I mean, if you had a guess, what do you think your wife would be? Do you think she would like this scenario or the offer if you guys can avoid your pain point and hit your carrot? Because hopefully at this point we've already gone through that. We already know their pain point and their carrot, what they're running towards, what they're running away from, and they'll tell you what they might say, but that's actually their concern 9 times out of 10. And I just address it right then and there. You think she'd be happy if you were able to stop this pain point and even get to this carrot what you're looking for? Would she be mad at you if you made that decision where it fixed all these problems? And now that you're able to move on and start your life without having moved into your mother-in-law's apartment or mother-in-law's house, would she be opposed to that? You think? Well, I don't think she'd be opposed to it. Oh, great, that's awesome. Then let's get the paperwork taken care of, so we can put this behind you. Or even still, if it's spouse, like, oh, great, yeah, let's. Is she working right now? What? No, no, she's off. Oh, she's with the kids or anything? Like, yeah, no, she's just sitting at home doing cleaning or whatever. Oh, awesome. Do you think would you be opposed if we just call her right now and we talk to her about it? Throw her on speakerphone, throw her on a 3-way call, whatever it is, like that. I've done that before, especially with probates. Probates are a whole other mess. I've had like 3 to 4 people like on the call just through dialing in, doing 3-way calls and whatnot, and it's just craziness. But yeah, is it, we're all on the same page, I hope, right? And if you're not, please, because if you guys have questions, I guarantee someone else has a similar question, or didn't that doesn't quite make sense, or how do I word that, Jared? How do I do this?
That helps because this week I have the opportunity or possibility. I don't know. He hasn't gotten back to me yet. Meeting with somebody who is leaving town in a month, but he
Okay.
wants to sell his house before then, and he has a lot to fix up. So I'm thinking that the only objection he would have is the price, I would guess.
Mm-hmm.
But these kind of things are helpful for that conversation I'm going to have.
Right. No, no, absolutely. I love it. So I mean, even then, it's like I can get more money listing it, or
Can he list it before he leaves in 3 weeks?
yeah, and good luck him having selling it too, right? Um, so if it's like, oh, I think I can get a better price, or I need a better price, So I mean, I could possibly, yeah, you definitely. I mean, I definitely see why you need it's not quite the price point you're looking for. Um, but have you considered, the time, the repairs, the commissions involved? What's more important to you? Getting top dollar, and getting top dollar versus getting top dollar, but you're also paying all of the fees and the time it's going to take, versus a fast close. We're going to close the next 2 weeks before you leave, and you're getting the equity, and so that you can put the money towards whatever their pleasure point is and avoid this. So if you
Sure.
put in there like, so what's more important to you? Do you want to getting the top dollar, which you're not necessarily getting the top dollar, versus what I'm offering, which I can close so that you can, then you just reiterate their pain point and their carrot,
Right.
right? You just keep you
Well, and I
reiterate the
think that
carrot and stick. It's like, what's more important, like getting that top dollar, even though you're having to pay the commissions and it's going to take an extra 3 months for it to sell, or not having to worry about the house and paying 2 mortgages, and that's so you can feel like this is completely gone and relieved, like you mentioned to me before, and so you can actually put a down payment on this property that you're looking at in XYZ place or whatever. What's more important? You tell me, right?
good one.
Well, and whatever they say. So, for example, if I mean, it is more important to me to close in the next 2 weeks, um, than getting like the top two, than getting the top dollar or whatever it is. Like, so, but why though? Have them again. This is part of like having them sell
Question. Yeah.
themselves, right? So, but why is it more important to you right now to sell before these 2 weeks versus listing it with an agent and paying all the cost and whatnot? Well, or waiting to get another offer or whatever. That have them convince themselves.
Right. Right.
Sometimes it'll be depending on where your offer is and where they want it to be. If it's close enough, sometimes our offers, because it just needs a lot, and they have a price in their head that is just crazy. But if it's close enough, right, to kind of where they're at, like it's not too far away. I'll run the numbers with them, and sometimes it's better to have them do the numbers. Like you got a calculator on your phone, right? Okay, cool. Here, pull it out, and here's what we're gonna do. So if you sell this property at 300,000 was what you wanted, so then I'll have them pull up the calculator, get. So I'll just say, okay, great. So it's 300,000, right? That's what you're hoping to sell that's what your price point is. And I know we're closer to 250, and I get that you're not going to budge on that, no problem. But let's just say you throw it in the market for 300,000, right? Do you do you know how much the agent fees are? What does your agent say? Like, oh, well, it's going to be 3%, 2.5. Like, okay, great, yeah. And then also the seller's agent. And if they say, oh, well, I don't have to pay we don't have to pay or the buyer's agent, sorry, the buyer agent, we don't do the buyer's agent anymore. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but you said you wanted top dollar though, right? Well, yeah. Like, so just to get top dollar, you need a lot more people interested and able to afford your property. Wouldn't you agree? Well, yeah, I would. Okay, awesome. Because the thing is, if you're not if the seller in today's market is not willing to pay for both sides, like how it used to be, and you know the laws changed and everything. If the seller's not willing to pay both, then that actually limits a lot of the buyers, because the buyers now have to pay their agent's commission in addition to their down payment and anything else. So sometimes people just they want to buy your house, but they can't afford to pay the realtor's commission, so they're actually out of the running at that point. So if you're trying to get top dollar and to be realistic, you got to pay both sides. I mean, if you lower the price, then yeah, sure, that's fine, but it's basically the same. You're walking away with the same amount. Does that make sense? So if you're paying realtor fees, we're talking like 6% in total, and then another. What about closing costs? Do you know what the closing costs are for a property like this? Closing costs. Yeah, there's title, title insurance, all of that stuff's kind of included. That's not part of the agent fees. It's usually about 1 or 1.5% of the purchase price. So if we're at it all up and being conservative on numbers, right? But 7.5% of 300,000. So times 300,000 by 7.5%. That's going to be 22,500 that you would have to pay in commissions and selling the property. And so, do you know how long it would take if you talk to agents about the time frame it usually takes? Okay, yeah, the days in the market is usually typically right around 90 days. Because the thing is, like when someone makes an offer, it usually doesn't close until 30 to 40 to 45 days after. And sometimes as they're going through their diligent process, maybe they don't get qualified for a loan, or they change their mind, they found a better deal, and then they cancel the contract, and then you're back to square one with a listing that's even further along. So hopefully everything goes smoothly. You don't have to worry about this stuff, but that's the thing that you have to possibly think about. And if an agent ever says that's not going to happen, that's definitely an agent I would never go with, because they're not being truthful. But it's if everything happens smoothly, you're not actually receiving the money for another 4 months. So really, the difference between what you would actually be getting from my offer of 250 and what you're trying to get for 300, it's basically about $25,000. And let me ask you: is what's more important to you? Getting an extra $25,000, or able to close this deal so that you don't have to worry about this paying double mortgage for 3 months, 4 months, and then you guys can, even if that's the scenario, let's just you can times what their mortgage is. Like let's just say, okay, so it's 22,500, and if their mortgage is like 2,500, times that by 4 months, that's an extra $10,000 that they have to pay. So it's actually 32,500 that they would be paying during that time, right? So you can throw that stuff in there too, depending on what they're doing, if they're gonna, if they're gonna live there until it moves or whatever, right? Kind of, but those type of things too. You can throw in the mortgage payments, actually make them realize how much they're really paying. So to save yourself an extra 15,000 in this scenario, because you're making $10,000 in payments for the next 4 months, um, is it what's more important to you? And there's no wrong answer here. I'm just generally curious. What's more important to you? Getting an extra 15,000, or having to, or being able to sell within the next 2 weeks, not have to worry about closing costs or agent fees, and so that you can, you know, like you said, you don't have to you're so you don't have to worry about paying double mortgages. You don't have to worry about the time frame. This thing is gone, and so you can actually focus on a new job, and so that you can actually move it into a new place, and you don't have two mortgages. So you're going to qualify for a better loan. You'll have enough for your down payment, like we just talked about before, and then you'll be able to actually start your new life. What's more important? The extra $15,000 and waiting an extra 4 months, and maybe even putting your job at jeopardy because you're not able to move out there fast enough, or going back and forth, or whatever their concerns are. That's how I would handle it if that's like their main concern. And so having them do stuff, like if you're doing math, like if you're showing them numbers, having them do it is going to be that much, because it's truer. Because what does Richard Stock say? If we say it is false, if they say it is true. So they know there's no trickery to it, because yeah, that makes sense. Okay, yeah, sure, 6% realtor fees. Maybe it's 5% because they're doing 2.5. Okay, cool. And another 0.5% for closing costs, or percent for closing costs. All right, that checks out. Yeah, okay, yeah, I put in the numbers. I didn't fudge anything. So sounds like what Jared's saying is right.
Hey, Jared, I got a quick curiosity question on something you said.
Yeah.
Just is days on market up until the time it goes under contract, or until it's sold?
Sold. Until
Okay.
it's sold.
Making sure. Cool. Okay. Thanks.
Yep. And correct me where I'm wrong, if I'm wrong, anything like that, my fellow agents.
Should be from listed to sold, right?
Yeah. Listed to sold. That's when it should be. And if you want to find out days in market, honestly, you can either talk to an agent, or a lot of times simple Google searches will tell you and give you a rough estimate. Like don't take it as gospel truth, but it's definitely a good estimate. And you can say stuff like, I Googled this, and like days in the market are like 60 or 90 days right now in the market. Like, okay, and we're in the time of the year. When is, we're still kind of in winter. We're in a season where it's going to start to pick up, but we're not exactly there when it's going to go like ham in the next month, or in a month or so, it'll start picking things up. But yeah,
Jared,
yes,
I have another question maybe you could help me with.
love to.
Um, I posted in the group chat, not on the call, but in the thing, but I
Uh-huh.
don't really know how to look up on the records. So,
Okay, what record you trying to look up?
well, I called them
Mhm.
and I asked if they were wanting to sell. On iOS, it shows that it's pre-foreclosure.
Mhm.
And then Zillow, which is not very accurate, but she said she wanted to sell, but she wouldn't agree to let me see the place. And then Zillow was saying that it was on auction. So I was like, well, okay. And then Bruce said to look up on public records to see if it is already started an auction or if it's just pre foreclosure still.
Mhm. Well, so the foreclosure has to be in public records, right? So one thing you mentioned that I would want to like address. So why wouldn't she want to let you see it if she's trying to sell it?
Right. She said she has tenants in it and hung up.
Okay, so she has renters in there, and it's a notice that she hung up a notice of default, and that was that, right?
That was that. Yeah.
She didn't want to talk about nothing or anything.
Right. She asked what price range I was in. And
Uh-huh.
I said, well, I'd like to see the area. I'd like to set a time to come see the house. And she
Yeah.
said, well, we have renters. I said, oh, you have renters? She said, yep. And then she hung up. I was going to call her back, but it was
Yeah.
just felt weird. So then I was like, well, maybe there's more to this. And then,
Yeah, there's definitely more to it, right? Um, and honestly, it's if they're trying to get a price point right away, and they're kind of like just give me the price right now, tell me right now.
yeah,
Um, you can always do, is it more important to you? What's more important to you, right? It's like, yeah, I would love to give you a price range right now. I mean, I'd be more than happy to, but let me ask you this. Is it more important for you for me to give you a real number where where I'm going to be confident, I'm not going to be trying to renegotiate down the line, and it's going to be something that's going to be solid that we both can agree on, versus me just throwing out a number, but as soon as I see the property or get pictures of the property and do more investigations, I'm gonna have to change or renegotiate with you. Is it more important for you to know that I'm giving you a real offer, or do you just want me to throw something at the wall, see what sticks?
okay, that's good. Thank you.
Is it more important for this than that, right? What's more important to you? You tell me. Like I can give you a number, that's fine. And at that point, I'll just like look up on Zillow and like let me and just like minus 70% plus minus profit or something like that. Just do a quick like 100 or even my I'm not a big fan of like the 70% rule that you may hear from YouTube gurus. I mean, it's okay, I suppose. But for me, it's like ARV. If there's a gap between ARV and 150,000, that's usually pretty decent. That's usually pretty good. That's my rule of thumb, because that's going to take enough for the rehab and then plus profit, closing cost, and whatnot. Typically, unless it's a complete gut job, that's going to be a little different. But for me, it's just like if I had to come up with like a quick numbers on the spot, I just minus 150 from what the houses are kind of selling, give or take, and just even getting like Redfins or Zillow and getting a rough idea of what the value is, and this minus 150,000. That'd be like my shooting from the hip number. That makes sense. If I didn't know the area as well as I do, or does that make sense? So you can give pretty quick numbers, but yeah.
Okay.
And,
Tell them
and
that, or would you just leave it?
well, in that scenario, so when they just hung up like that, I try to play dumb. If you want to call them back, I'm like, oh, I need to apologize to you. I think my phone just hung up on you. I'm so sorry. Like making you the bad guy.
Right. I was going to, but then I was like, well, something I need to know. I just had that feeling that I needed to have more information, but I don't know what to say.
Sure. Absolutely. When did you call this person?
Saturday.
Saturday. Okay. Yeah. Right. So, well, I mean, and Bruce put in there too. There will be the notice, the NTS documents listed. So, like the notice of defaults, the notice of blank will be like in
This
the
notice of
go ahead.
this is the notice of intent to sell.
And
Notice of intent. Oh, notice in
Yeah, so the
intent
notice
to
of
sell.
default will be on there, but when the auction's coming up, it'll actually have the notice for intent to sell because they have to do that X many days before the actual auction.
so, do I go to Utah Public Records and then I have to pay $1 for each record?
No, well, the county. So, what county is it? Are you looking in?
Davis?
So, on Davis County, when you find that address, there should be like a little document tab. I haven't done a ton of Davis, but it'll have those type of notices. Notice intent to sell. So Davis me parcel.
Do you want to look it up for me?
Sure. And as we're doing this, guys, if what other objections are because we can multitask and I can share my screen. Maybe I can share my screen. Is there any other concerns you think that might come up? Maybe you haven't had it, but you're worried about them saying something like this. 2.0. When you're looking at for the county records, guys, you want gov websites. Okay, so Davis County parcel lookup or the city you're looking in, Tooele city parcel lookup, and you'll get either there's two type of searches you'll get like the map search, or like just the straight up this parcel lookup 2.0. Let's see. I clicked on it before, so let's see. Okay. So Davis County property search. Don't want that. Oh my dude. So launch portal. This is gonna be more than map, I'm sure. Which is fine too. There's benefits of using the map too, guys. So for an example, and you can just do, I'm just gonna do here. This is fine. This will get us to everything we need. If you get like the map, this is really nice because if you're like you don't remember the exact address and you just want to, you maybe the cross streets, you can just, I can click on this house here and I have the information, right? I can also just search and then I can go view parcel data, I think I have, there it is. I have the pictures. What's the address, Katrina?
Sorry, what did you say?
What's the address on that property?
I put it in the chat.
Oh, make it easy for me. I see how it is. There it is. Okay, is it on cul-de-sac? Does that sound right?
I have no clue. I just cold called it.
There you are. That's okay. Was it Eleanor? Was the lady you talked to?
Um, sorry, I didn't even get her name. It was Raymond was the lady, but it was a lady, so I didn't know. I just
Okay.
clicked on.
We have Raymond and Eleanor.
Okay.
That makes
Yep,
sense.
Raymond is.
Great. So we on this blue button here, we're going to click on that because that gives you the basic information of the property right there. I may have to do a different search to find out the documents though. We'll see. Documents right here, validation. validation notices. What is? Notice of property validation and taxes. Okay. Documents. So we have other liens. Release of rollback lien. Oh, is this making me pay?
That's what I asked. 'Cause I was looking it
Mhm.
up because I wanted you to maybe call for me, but it won't give me the information unless I pay. So I was wondering if maybe I'm on the wrong site.
Jared, I think if you hit the little magnifying glass next to it, it might give you a preview of the document. I've had to look at stuff on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I
Uh-huh.
don't know if it gives you everything, but
Right. At least give us an idea what it is. What's the abstract? You know, what is that? Okay. I don't know. Anyways, but that gives. I mean, you can just take a look at it here if it's going to be here. Release of rollback tax lien. So they had tax liens on their property. Oh, it was back in 2007. Okay, that's like. Anyways, yeah, I would I'd give them a call. 2007 when they bought it. I'm sure. Okay. Yeah, I don't see any notices on there. Good call out, Josh. Thanks, man.
Sorry, the NTS stands for Notice of Trustee Sale. But on the Utah County website, it's a NTEE instead of NTS. So it might be something different.
Mm-hmm.
I got the NTS I got. I don't recall where I got. I just remember reading it on a site I was searching for leads on.
Right.
So I mistake the NTS for at least Utah anyway. Utah County.
Okay. All right. Well, if it, yeah, let's call her. I'm down to call. You guys want to hear a call?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Katrina. What's the want to text me or put in the chat the phone number? This lady over here.
I put it in chat.
Okay. Got it. Good call. Yes, you're okay.
Automatic voice message system 80149946692 is not available. At the tone, please record your message. When you have finished recording, you may hang up or press 1 for more options.
Hi, this is for Eleanor or Raymond. My name is Jared. I was calling about your property out there in Davis County. My phone number is 801-648-3374. That number again is 801-648-3374. So the reason on my call, there's been a okay, see if she calls back, but yeah, the mailing address is the same as the regular address. So I don't. Maybe there is something. Maybe she does have rent. Maybe not. Maybe she's just saying that 'cause she's sick and tired of hearing people talking about getting the phone call, especially as in notice of default. So, but okay, cool. But does that give you a better idea if that does happen again or something similar? If you have a,
Yes.
it's just a matter of like um, trying to break through their walls, right? And And if they do hang up and you still want to have, still have a question, like, I like to call them back and just like, oh, what's like, my bad. I think my phone must have disconnected. I'm so sorry. And if they hang up again, then it's like, okay, yeah, they're that done. So that after any more contact of that's pretty much like harassment at that point. But oops, I thought my call was disconnected. Like pretty fair. Okay, so last 5 minutes. What other concerns do you guys think you may be or afraid that will come up, or objections that might come up? And handling objections with seller financing, that's a whole hour conversation, another call we can talk about. But yeah, this is mostly in general, like what the basic objections you're gonna be getting. Oh yeah, yeah. Another one is like, oh yeah, another one for price point. I wrote this down too. Um, I want more money. What response is like, yeah, I totally get that. Addressing, like, or validating. If you were able to get more, what would that do for you? So you give them an offer and they're just like, well, I still need this. Like, okay, I get that. Totally makes sense. But if you were able to get more, because hopefully you sandwich your offer between their pain point and their pleasure, like we talked about it. So yeah, I totally are looking for more. But if you were able to get more, what would that what would that actually do for you? Well, I'd have more money to put in the bank. I get that. Cool. And if we could solve your pain point right now, would it still make sense to hold out for the extra amount? Would it still make sense to hold out for the extra amount? And whatever they say, well, why is that? Well, yeah, it would make sense. Well, why is that? I guess you're right. Maybe it wouldn't make sense. Like, yeah, why do you say it wouldn't make sense? Like you're cementing their decision making to go with you, regardless of that. Why is that? Yeah. Excellent. Excuse me. Excellent thing. Okay. Love it. Love it. And those objection handlings are in the negotiating workbook that I put a link in there. It's also in the classroom too. So okay, cool. Bruce says this is the announcement requiring for Utah. Is that Utah County or just Utah in general, Bruce?
That's
For
Utah in
trustee
general.
sale. Okay, auction.
Yeah, so basically they have to list it in a lot of different areas before they can actually, so many days before they auction. Newspapers, other places, things like that. So it's it's all of Utah. It's actually the code, the title code.
Oh, nice. Okay. 30 days before the date of the sale is scheduled. By posting the notice 20 days before. All right, that's pretty cool. So if you guys are iffy on like even like the when it gets closer to when it gets to auction time, this gives you the play-by-play right here. That's a pretty good nugget. Save that link, guys, and think, Bruce. So it's like, what's the time frame? And then if you guys have a general idea of what that time frame is, then you can answer their questions too. Because sometimes they don't understand. They're like, oh yeah, they said they're gonna close on it. Like they don't. It's gonna take them another 6 more months. Like, well, actually, they just need to post it for 30 days before the sale, and then 20 days before, because they just don't know the situation. It's not an everyday thing for them, for most people. But okay, awesome, guys. I think hopefully that was very, very helpful. overcoming the objections. I mean, we'll and check out the workbook. The negotiations has some overcoming objections as well. Already there. But perfecto. Okay. All right, guys. Well, I mean, I appreciate y'all. Thanks for being understanding about yesterday, and thanks to everyone that showed up to the door knocking bonanza. We didn't talk about that, but it was a blast. I think it was really fun. We had it's like 8 people. Marjorie, Bruce, how many think it was probably 8 of us, right? Yeah, about that, give or take. I'll have to check the
Yes, Jared,
picture.
it was 8.
It was 8. Okay, nice. So I mean,
Yeah, I was trying to look at the picture.
yeah, it's a lower turnout, but I think maybe because of the location. But the thing is, guys, like if you're not willing to drive 20 minutes or 30 minutes to go knock on some doors and overcome those objections, then or not overcome objections, but finding deals, then I don't have to tell you. It's gonna be an uphill. You're playing on hard mode if that's the mindset. Sometimes life's a thing, and I get it. So I'm not like dogging sometimes unavoidable things. Bruce, do you mind sharing for like just a quick minute? I know we're already past 12, but I should have done this at the very beginning. I love you were open and a little bit vulnerable, like saying like how did you feel about going door knocking, and how did you feel after when we were done?
Yeah. So, there was 9 of us because I wasn't in the last picture. I had to leave.
Oh, right.
But yeah. So I guess I mean, I've spoken in front of 600 people before. No big deal. But when it comes to the one-on-one, especially for something that it's not that I'm not sure of it, but I may not be sure of myself with it. It's a little bit daunting. And so anyway, I kind of came in with fear and trepidation and thinking, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? But on top of that, it was just the fact that, you know what, I'm here, I'm going to do this. It's like the more you do, I told myself I was going to do it. So I showed up for one thing, and that kind of gave me the confidence. And then once we hit the first door, really that was it, because it wasn't that hard because we've got the script that Jared's given us, and basically it's just finding out about your neighbor kind of thing instead of trying to sell them something or try to get them to sell, or it's nothing like that. It's just finding out about your neighbor. We didn't actually get into the house or talk to the people at the houses that were the target houses, but the conversations I had before then, there was people that were completely willing to talk with you on the door and tell you all about the neighbors. And then there was one that wasn't interested at all, even though we weren't selling anything. So that kind of alleviated the issue of nervousness about it. And afterwards, I was just excited to go down the street in my own neighborhood and just talk to a bunch of people and see if I could find something. And sure enough, maybe this week they just got back to me, actually. I just saw the text. And so I'll be talking to somebody this week.
Nice. Well, that's and so now that you've done it, like it was a little nerve wracking because you're right. I mean, speaking on stage, it's like a different fear versus one-on-one, right? If you stage, typically there's gonna be some people that's gonna like what your message is. Some people sometimes you just bomb, right? But even still, there's still kind of like almost a distance.
There's a mixture of people who like you and people who don't like you. But one-on-one, if they don't like you, or if you're not rolling with it, then
right,
it's up to you to kind of thing. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, it's a different fear, but it's the same. It's based in the same realm, right?
Right. Absolutely.
The fear of rejection is what it really comes down to, right? So like but now that you're like, okay, this is so true just across the board from when I'm talking to people, and I'm sure everyone that has gone door knocking, or whether it's Bonanza or it's by themselves, like it's the same. Like they're so nervous at first, but once they get started, it's like, oh, this is not nearly as bad as I thought. Like I'm actually motivated to do more of this stuff. So sometimes it's just like what Bruce said, like it's just the matter of making that decision to show up, and that's going to be like the biggest and hardest, because I'm sure Bruce had plenty, and everyone else that went, Katrina, Marjorie, everyone else that went, Laura especially, like she. How many hours did you drive? Was it 8 hours total? Like 4 hours here, 4 hours back for a 3 hour door knocking event?
Yeah, it's pretty much that. I got home about 7 o'clock on Saturday night. I left my house at 7. I got home at 7.
If anyone has any excuses, whether it's bonanza or not, or just to go out to do something, like talk to Laura, then then start giving excuses. Okay, because
Yeah, she was definitely, she was a pushing my way too. I'm like, if she's coming from Idaho, I better show up because
right.
it's in my county.
Well, and the thing is, like, I'm sure Laura and had plenty of us, like, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't go because I got to take care of these animals. I got to do this, this, and this. My kitchen's a mess. She has not a lack of excuses why she shouldn't come. And same with Bruce. I'm sure you have probably had those same thoughts in your head. Like, there's a gazillion things which I could do instead of going to this bonanza thing and next door knocking, which I'm kind of nervous about, anyways. Right?
Well, even Jared,
Right.
that was just the thing. I woke up Saturday morning and my husband's got a pinched nerve in his shoulder and is in a lot of pain. And I said, "Are you gonna go?" And he said, "No, I can't." He said, "I can't sit to drive that long." But he says, "I want you to go." So it was more, it's like, don't you just sit here and stay home just because I can't.
Right. Yeah. No, I love it.
And we even got to knock on back doors instead of front doors.
There was there's one community. It was so weird. It's just like we couldn't figure out where the front door was. Let's put it that way. It's like almost a townhome, but not. And yeah, it was interesting. Yeah, I think we knocked on a lot of newer construction areas, which has its own challenges and opportunities in all in one. But okay, we're over 6 months and 6 months, 6 minutes. Holy cow, that's a short 6 months.
Thanks, Jared.
Bye everybody.